Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining DragonCon's alternate and historical fiction track as we dive deep into the current season and possibly past seasons of Outlander. I would like to introduce our moderator for the evening, Crystal Fan, and she is going to take over the show. Y'all enjoy.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Outlander virtual fan panel. So we're going to go person by person, and I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us why that you are the perfect person to be on this Outlander panel. And we're going to start with Abby.
Oh, darn it. Okay, so my name is Abby Ekenezer. I am an actress and voiceover artist over in Seattle and massive cosplayer. And I would say that I'm good for this panel mainly because I am super opinionated. And I, read the Outlander books, or actually listened to the Outlander books right when they first were introduced on Audible, because I just wanted to get into something new that was science fiction / fantasy. And I loved the story. And so when I found out that they were doing the show, there was a dedication there, along with making most of my friends watch it at the same time. So also I wanted to see how awesome England was against the Scots. So there's that too.
Great. Thank you. Amanda, how about you?
Hi, everyone. My name is Manry Prescott. I am from Brooklyn, New York. I'm actually I am an Outlander recapper / reviewer for Den of Geek. I also have submitted some fan opinions and the like to Blacklanders as well. So that's sort of, I'm also very opinionated, also occasional player cosplayer as well. So that's kind of where I come from. I tend to separate the show from the books because when you're watching it having the two timelines overlap is just not fun for your brain.
Great. Ginger, your turn.
Yes, hi, great to be here. My name is Ginger Weissman. I am a fan, of course, as we all are. I was introduced to the books in the 90s by my sister, who is also my co-host on our show, who could not be here. And I've so the 90s, and then I've been a podcast listener fan since about 2008 when I got my first iPod Nano, and so that was cracking on just fine. And then 2013, my sister tells me, there's this thing, there's a rumor that is and there's going to be this show, and we'd heard rumors before, but never with really wonderful, substantial names attached to them. And there were stars and Ron Moore, and I thought, this actually could be a thing. So after a few weeks, and then they accidentally on purpose intern maybe dropped Sam Heughan's name as the person playing Jamie on July 5th of that year. All the stuff blew up. And then in July, I'm like, you know what? After doing my due diligence and looking in, at that point, the only repository really was Apple Podcasts, finding that there was nothing out there about Outlander podcast-wise, except Diana's own podcast, but that was more about writing style, or how to write, how she wrote. I asked my sister if she wanted to join me to do the Outlander podcast. And we started in August or September of 2013, and we've been going ever since. We did read-alongs of the book, which means we don't read them because that's copyrighted material, but we discuss, like a book club. We discuss each chapter by chapter, and then we do discussions of the TV show.
Great. Cynthia.
Hi there, I'm Cynthia Genti. I'm an Uber fan, part-time blogger, part-time book discussion leader, and generally trying to convert everybody I know to the world of Outlander. But I think my biggest qualification is probably that when I started reading the books, I read them for such a long time that I developed double vision and had to stop for 6 weeks.
And last but not least, Hanako.
It's Hanako. Hi, my name.
Excuse me.
That's okay. My name is Hanako Ricks. I am the creator and host of the Fandom Hybrid podcast. We just launched back in September of last year. And part of the reason why I launched it is because I was on another podcast that discussed mostly science fiction. TV shows, movies, books, and I wanted my own outlet to be able to discuss shows like Outlander. I am a more recent fan. I started watching the show at the beginning of season 3, or actually at the end of season 2. Outlander had been on my radar for a number of years. I had several of the books at home and I just never had the chance to read them. Then the show came out and I was like, oh my God, I've got to watch this show. And I just never had the time. So right before the season finale for season 2, Stars did a marathon of all of season 1 and season 2. And I was like, okay, well, I'm cleaning up. I'm not doing anything. Let me put this on in the background and just kind of see what it's about. And I think I got about 20 minutes in and I was on my couch for the next 11 hours, went to sleep, woke up, finished watching the rest of season 2, and then finished with season 2 just as the season finale was dropping. And I have been diehard ever since. I've been on this panel now this will be the 3rd year, and I'm so excited to have an outlet to talk about my love of Jamie and Claire and Fergus and Marsley and all of the other characters on the show. So
Great. Well, we've got a big panel tonight. We're going to talk about season 5. That it's been a while since season 5 was on, so I may or may not have rewatched in preparation for the panel. Then we've got, maybe we're going to talk about what we think might be going on in season 6, and then the big discussion, what we think may be going on in the new book that's going to drop, hopefully this fall. So we got a big panel tonight, 90 minutes. So let's get started. First thing we're going to do is play a game called What Made You? If you were on the virtual panel last year, we did this last year. And we're going to start it off with a pretty easy question. In season 5, what made you laugh? And just for example, I'll just tell you what made me laugh in season 5 was Marsley. I love her. I love that. I love that character. And in the book, she's not that big of a character in the book, but on the show, Lauren Law has taken her and just made her into one of my favorite characters. And especially that moment when Claire is bringing her in and she's got that dead body there. And she goes, oh my God, my mother was right. You're a witch. I laughed out loud when I was watching it. So what made you laugh in season 5?
I'm going to piggyback off of your comment because I knew you were going to ask that question. And I just rewatched that scene last night. And that was the one that stuck in my head. Just the way that she looked at Claire. She was like, don't make me say it. Don't make me say it. Was my mom right? Was she right? And Claire's like, I'm not a witch. And she's like, okay, the display in front of us is not doing anything to dispel that theory. Lauren Lyle has such a way with Marsley, like you said, she's not that prominent in the books, and just the way that she brings her to life on the show, I'm always laughing at her character. And I mean, she has a quick tongue, you can't really get too much over on Marsley. And so just watching her do that scene, and then also the scene at Roger and Bree's wedding where they're doing the tongue twisters, and she does the one that's maybe not so proper for a lady. Those are 2 of my favorite moments.
One thing that I appreciate Marsley so much, and I agree, she brings the character, and the writers do a lot of that too. Obviously, they give her the work or the meat and potatoes of her scenes, but she delivers it so naturally, and that is I think it does not come off as acting. It's so real and so hysterical. The scene that came to mind, to answer your question, the scene that came to mind was when, I think it was after the wedding, when they play hide the sausage with the baby next door. It's just when they have the baby in the bassinet right next to them, Jamie and Claire, And then the baby starts to cry and they're looking over like, and then they get up and move the baby. That I was like, wait, they're not gonna, I mean, I know it's all fake. I know it's fake. There's not a real baby there. They're not really doing it. But I was like, are they gonna like leave the baby there? And the baby would not be traumatized in real life. It would not traumatize the baby because the baby can't see anything. But still, there's that, there's that feeling of holy crap. But yeah, that made me giggle. Yeah.
I'm also gonna second the tongue twister wedding scene. That one was just when I got my screener, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Also, yeah, Marcelly definitely made me laugh the most when I was watching it this season.
Yeah, I'm gonna say the same thing, but in addition to that, I think just the scenes between Jocasta. She is, I don't know, sometimes I feel like she carries that whole show because the mean-spirited sarcasm that like she exudes. I want to grow up to be like her, on her like third, fourth wedding, owner of this like massive amount of land, choosing any man that she wants to, kind of, I guess. It's just, she's just one of those people that I look forward to like watching her stuff, especially when she was like first introduced seasons before. So yeah.
Well, Crystal, you took the scene I was going to say, which was Marcelly's reaction,
Not
because
surprised.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
if you didn't laugh out loud on that one, there's something wrong with you. But I would also say the same with Jamie and the sperm and looking through the microscope and that whole conversation.
Yeah.
Well, okay, let's move on. Next question. What made you cry? Cynthia.
The thing that made me cry was when the buffalo was charging Bree and Claire shot the buffalo. And then like half a minute later, we see Jamie crawling out on the porch. And here he is, he's so sick and he can't even stand, but he's going to do whatever he can, even though he's near death, to protect his family. So
Yeah,
that was the one that made me cry.
I can say, I mean, honestly, there were a lot of things that made me cry during that season. I think the thing that was the most for me was, I mean, there was the snake bite, but then with Jamie, but there was also the woman, the abused woman, I forgot what her name was, but living with that really horrible person and giving up the child.
Fanny Beardsley.
Yeah.
You can tell that I watched it when it first came out, when the season first came out. But yeah, just that whole, giving up your kid because it belongs to this just super abusive, well, not belongs to, but knowing that you have to live with this abusive person. So, trying to do the right thing, but at the same time, having to give up this piece of yourself to, I mean, any mother, especially dog moms or cat moms, it was really, really heart-wrenching seeing all of that happen. Just, I was crying along with the scene. So the actors were just phenomenal with all of that.
Claire's abduction and rape, obviously, if you have read the books, right, you know what's coming. You cannot leave that out. But, and yeah, it was sad. It was scary. Like it was as effective as they had meant it to be. But what broke me was the way they handled her dissociation. That was so I don't even know. I don't have a lot of words. I have a lot of words, but I'm saying, it was sad. Anyone would be, devastated, upset, angry, scared, crying at watching that type of thing on, watching a film or a TV show that has that represents that. But the way they handled her dissociation, it's one of those things that, so book, as we know, books have their specialty, right? They can do a lot of the explaining, a lot of exposition. They can do a lot, and they have a lot of space, really unlimited space. Video and film are much more limited. However, they can do things, of course, that a book cannot, and that is, while it is not mentioned, her dissociation in the book, she certainly is, her what she's going through is described, and you can absolutely read that into it. Not the detail that they gave us in the show, but so what the show was able to do, and their bread and butter, or the huge benefit to the visual medium, is to be able to portray things so fantastically, or imaginatively, or using fantasy. And so when they showed that, it was so unexpected, not unexpected that they would show us something that she was going through, but unexpected the way that they brought those themes in, the orange, her red dress, like everything was so finely attuned to that moment. As she was, her brain was, splitting off and trying to protect her, and potentially she could have ended up dead, right? She didn't know what was going to happen at the end. So many things, like that was her precious place, her safe place. And as her brain made that, it brought in all the people that she loved and who were her family then. And man, every time like someone arrived, or every time you saw someone on screen come up and then sit down, oh man, I cried again. It was, that entire episode was like, just, slayed me.
I think for me, mine comes in 3 parts, and they all have to do with Myrta. The first was Myrta and Jocasta's scene before she sends him away. That scene was so powerful. I do not know how those two did not get nominated for like all the awards, but that scene was so powerful. And having to listen and see Jocasta talk about what happened to her daughter because she was married to a man who was politically ambitious, in that sense. So having to hear her relive that heartbreak, and to have to see her send Myrta away because she knew that he's the same type of person like Hector, like his war and what he's standing up for, his beliefs. Those are the things that are important to him. And even though Jocasta is important to him too, when she talks about it to him, his words are, well, after this war. And that's when she realized, she said, there's always another war. And that will always be first with you. And she sends him away. And then, of course, in the next episode, we see him shot to death because of advice Jamie gave to a young soldier about not hesitating, about, pushing forward, doing what you were supposed to do, doing your duty. And it just happens to be that same kid who shoots Myrta, and he dies. And excuse me, just Jamie's reaction when he brings Myrta to the tent and he implores Claire, heal him, fix him. And it gets to the point where he starts yelling because he can't believe that Myrta is gone. That was heartbreaking. And then to follow up with that, the small scene where we saw Jocasta singing at his grave. And then when she gets ready to leave and Jamie tells her goodbye, Auntie, and she says, how careful we'd be if we can't which goodbyes would be our last. That whole thing just had me sobbing. And I just rewatched those episodes again last night. And I think one of the things with this show, it doesn't matter if you watch it the first time or if you watched it 10 times since, some of those scenes will always grab at you, will always elicit the same reaction as it did the first time you watched it. And those scenes with Myrta, those final scenes with him, those always do it for me with this season.
I would say for me, Claire's association was definitely one. The other one was seeing Bree have to deal with Sue Monnet again. I mean, it is in the books, but I was just like crying because I'm like, is he going to hurt her again? And like, of course, separating this books and travels is like, I hate this. I say everything about this, and I'm just sad for Bree that she has to deal with this again. So yeah, that was sort of that for me. I was like, I had to like stop several times. I'm like watching the episode before I have to review about it. I was like, this is so upsetting for me, and that was my That's a big one.
I think mine was Myrta. Mine was Myrta because in the book, Myrta's death in the book was kind of an abstract thing. You heard about it, but you didn't live it. You know what I mean? And seeing it and living it and having him say the words that, you know, in the books, Jamie remembers the death and remembers what he says, you know, it doesn't hurt a bit to die, you know, and seeing, oh, I mean, I was just like, I sobbed, you know, just like a baby. I cried. It was terrible, just terrible. Hated it.
I think the other thing too is the fact that we get Myrta for more in the show than we did in the books, because in the books he died at Culloden.
Exactly.
So it's more of an impact here because in the books there was no relationship with Jocasta. He had no relationship with Bree, with Roger. And it's just that he was able to be given such a bigger role, and then for us to still lose him, I was actually mad for a while about that.
Yeah.
Like, you guys gave him to us just to yank him away from us again. Like,
that is a perfect segue, because my next question is, what made you angry? Now, this is kind of a twofold question. It can be anger at somebody in the storyline, like Lionel Brown, for instance, or it could be anger at the writers. Like, I'll just tell you, last year, and Cynthia, God bless her, who she is in the Sassenach Sisterhood with me, can attest to the fact that I griped for half a year that Jamie and Claire didn't make it back for little Jimmy's birth. I'm still griping about it.
We talked about that on the panel last year too. I think
I did.
I think we talked about that for like 15 whole minutes, because I think all of us were in agreement about that.
Because I was, yeah, but yeah. So what made you angry this year?
I'm gonna go with Amanda Ray's previous answer. The whole scene with Bree having to deal with Bonnet on the scale that she had to deal with. Like, I watched that whole episode just like, oh, why do we have to deal with this? And then, you know, later on to see her get her satisfaction in, well, I don't even know if you want to call it satisfaction, but
Justice.
Yeah, but I think for me, the whole thing with Bree and Stephen Bonnet, and I think I had a little bit of a problem with this in the books that, you know, that I remember reading. I was a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that Bree felt sympathy for him and that she was trying to make him comfortable. Like, last season, she went to visit him in the jail, and like she told Roger, she knew he was about to die, and she wanted to comfort him, you know, giving him an idea that something of his would remain in this world. And I was like, he doesn't deserve that. Why is she being the empathetic one when she was the one who was attacked, when she has to live with this uncertainty about the parentage of her child, when she has to deal with the PTSD, when she has to, there's just so much that she has to carry. So why is it that she's the one that's comforting him? He doesn't deserve it. So that was one of the big things I think still upset me with this season. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. Of course, the whole thing with Claire's abduction and what she went through, of course, that's kind of a given that I would be upset about that. I was kind of thrown off us dealing with it so early, because I think that wasn't supposed to happen. Like, if the seasons followed the books, that we shouldn't have gotten that for another year. But I'm kind of glad that we have it now. It's been put out there, and now we can deal with that and move on to whatever other tragedies are about to befall the stages. But yeah, I think that with Bree's reaction and the way that she was forced to deal with Bonnet and have to just, I guess, empathize with him, that whole thing just made me upset as a book reader and as a show watcher.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on that, because I mean, I have no idea why they made it that she would have to constantly confront, the person that tormented her when she first arrived there. It's like, I mean, I was actually trying to get some kind of reprieve off of what Hanako said when she went to the jail, because my twisted mind was like, she was telling him this because he will die with the fact of knowing that he will never get to know his son, or never get to know like who he grows up to be, or something like that, and when my twisted mind thought that, that also made me believe that was the reason why he fought so hard to get out of the jail, so he could go and like bridge a relationship. Because now he's just like, he's still a heathen, but I felt like there was some part of him that was like, okay, well, maybe I can teach my son to be just as well as I am, because if I go, there's a legacy, right? Because that's how men thought then, spreading their seed and all of that. But yeah, 100%. There were so many things that Brie did that I just wanted to just slap her over and over again. Like, there is a perfectly great man here who loves you so much. Why are you, it's like you want the drama. It's like the way that they wrote her, that's what pissed me off. It's like, you want the drama over and over again. And that's what you go and like actively seek out, especially, the whole watching him drown thing. It was just like, why do you need, I mean, it's going to happen. Why do you need to watch it? Like, there's no reason. There's no way he's going to escape from a post in the middle of the water. Why do you need to go and watch that? So, sorry.
I think all three of you thus far have touched on something that is, I don't know that I'm upset about it. I have been with choices in the past, especially one in Voyager, which we're not going back to. But season 5 was the first time, like, they've left things out, right? And they've written new things in. That's going to always happen. Season 5, though, was the first time that they brought stuff from another book forward or back, however you want to look at it. And so the difficulty with, and you're not wrong with the whole Brie like confronting him again and again and again, is in the books, the big kind of things where she is confronting him, Stephen Bonnet doesn't die or isn't killed until like 2/3 of the way through book 6. So they brought it so far back. They conflated among the Myrtles chapter, where they're out collecting myrtle leaves to make wax, while Jamie and Roger are out getting something, trying to find Bonnet, which of course he's not there. And they conflated that with the part in book 6 where Roger's out becoming almost a minister and supposed to be ordained like the next day, and Brie is abducted from her mule or her horse or something. So it is a lot, and they conflated two things, which is fine, or brought them together because they wanted to kind of, I guess, hurry things up. And I understand why they do that, but it makes it, as you guys are feeling the frustration of the effect of that, right? You would already feel that the frustration that she has to have the confrontation with him in the jail, and then one in the book, at least, when they're confronted at the seaside, and then later on when she's kidnapped by him, right, or by his people. So while it's one less, it's just so much shrunk or brought forward. It's so much more. And I think also, as someone mentioned, the rape and abduction of Claire, it absolutely was brought forward. That's like chapter 24, because we're reading book 6 right now. That's like chapter 24. It's pretty darn early in book 6. So while I feel your frustration and I don't disagree with any of it, I think, and it is hard for me to separate book and show. I do my best though. I think now what we're seeing is, I'm really hoping that we're going to see the fruits of the labor later. Whereas we know they brought things forward for season 5. It kind of makes sense because if you take out Bonnet for 2/3 of the book, he's gone. If you take out her abduction and rape, or the whole sequence, then you still have a huge book. It's the longest book thus far, even longer than Moby, page wise. But anyway, it's just it's kind of frustrating. And I feel all of your frustration about these things, and those are some of the things that you're feeling are a result of that change too.
Also, I think the thing that would have made it a little better for me with Bree is if most of what we saw about her interaction or her recollection, everything that she had to deal with Bonnet was mostly from a place of fear. And I feel like if we had seen a little bit of the book Bree, there's the confrontation in the woods when he tries to take Jem and she shoots his testicles off. That was one of those moments where Bree said, I am not going to let you control my life anymore. I'm not going to live in fear of you anymore. If they had included just a little bit more of that in the show, then it probably wouldn't have bothered me so much, the empathy that she had for him, because in that way you can say, you know what, you're worth nothing, your life means nothing, you know what, I'll give you this small little mercy because you have no hold over me anymore. I could understand it then, but the way that they wrote her, and I understand PTSD is different for everyone, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more balance in the show version like we saw in the book version.
I have several things that I'm like that like annoyed me this season, but I want to say, first of all, I know for staffing reasons they had to truncate the Jocasta plot with River Run. I think they did not do the greatest job handling the fact that she has slaves. Huge problem. Secondly, I think they do need to dial back some of the rape culture elements from the show in terms, I know that's going to annoy the book readers because in the books, but I think I understand a lot of what the non-readers see with the show. They're like, this is not making sense to us. Why are the same women getting attacked over and over again? Like, this doesn't seem realistic from a historical point of view. And it also seems like it's fueling drama where there could be other forms of suspense that could be used. And I would say that was more, to me, that the flashbacks to last season, Brie, were more annoying because Claire's thing was a little bit different because that was the consequences of the battle. It was slightly different. I mean, not that I think they handled it the best they could, but I really feel like both of those could have just been definitely switched around a bit or even thrown out. But I know that's going to anger some of the hardcore book fans. Like, whatever Diana wrote must be on a page. I'm like, but here's the thing, there's a whole bunch of people who are watching the show who have not read the book, and the story has to make sense, and some of that stuff does not make sense to them. My other complaint with season 5, and I think it starts even with season 4, I think Roger's character development has suffered a bit, and some of the decisions that he makes, even though episode 8 did a really good job trying to like portray things from his point of view, I just feel like we missed so much of the early days of Roger Bree's relationship that people are now hating her, they're hating him. It's just, and of course Bonnet is hanging over everything, and people are like, why am I even rooting for this guy? He sounds annoying, like he has no purpose in life, because they missed a lot of his stuff about his Presbyterianism is not in the show anymore. So this, like you said earlier, like becoming a minister, that's interesting. That I was like, all that we haven't seen any of that in the show. So that's a huge chunk of information missing that I think people who did not read the book, they're struggling to fill that in. And it also leads into Bree's PTSD, like the way that's been handled. If they saw more of her taking back control of her own life versus her reliving the events constantly, I think people would probably be more sympathetic to her. And then also to Roger, if we saw more of his earlier days and their earlier days too, because as it was, season 4 edited the scenario of when Bonnet first attacked to begin with. So they changed the timeline on that, and that kind of had a domino effect toward the rest of what happens in season 5 with their plot specifically. So those are like my two main things: is Green Roger and rape hit stuff, and also Jocasta and the slaves.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything that's been said regarding Bree, the whole Stephen Bonnet thing. I would have been happy if they just left that out, because I didn't like it in the books. So to devote a whole episode to it for me was just, it was tedious. But I think to somebody else's point, they could have brought up that she went to the jail for herself. She went to see if she could forgive him. And she did that for her. She didn't do that to give him comfort. And that didn't really come out in season 5. And I wish that had come out in season 5, because that relates more to who Book Bree is. So yeah, I pretty much agree with everything y'all have said. And the other plot line I didn't really care for was the whole Lieutenant Knox thing, that he was there and then 2 episodes later he's gone. And it just seemed like a whole plot convenience. And gee, is this the way we had to introduce Adso?
Something I thought of as you guys were going on, because of course, isn't that the way it always is? And I'm not going to take much time to say this, to discuss it, but 2 things that I thought of as you guys were all speaking was, not that it has to be, again, like the books, no, but they did, and I understand they did things the way they did things because it added to Jocasta's story, which even if they don't, I'm gonna spoil myself here now, even if they don't go with the gold storyline, having the story of that at least gives us some information. Okay, they haven't forgotten about the gold, but the fact that they haven't done diddle poop squirt squat about the gold, and the fact that we don't know the bugs, we don't give a rat's about the bugs, which is fine that they're not going to go that direction. And it looks like they're not going to do the gold, which to me means if you're not going to do the gold, we're not going to have all the books, and that's okay. But the gold is the big old problem in book 8. So yeah, I just, those 2 things I just remembered.
Yeah, what doesn't make sense to me is, I mean, the main reason why you do a TV show that's based off books is so that you can put a lot more stuff compared to what you would put in a movie. I mean, as a screenwriter, when you're trying to do an adaptation, because we're actually doing one right now with some of Octavia Butler's books, there's a lot of stuff that you have to cut out, like a lot of stuff that you have to cut out, right? And you have to make sure that you're putting stuff in there that the people want to see, and also stuff that's relevant to now, because you want to make sure that it holds people's attention, on top of making sure that there's this huge action series like right in the beginning so people aren't just like, why am I watching this? So like why I was excited about the TV series, after reading the books, was because I knew that they would have liberty to do that, right? So even if there is a scene where it seems like it drones on, it will get to that point where, okay, there's action, and Amanda Ray is right. Like I get that in the book it's like all over, but the rape scenes, there's so many, and I understand about trying to stay as true to the books as possible, but it kills me. It's like, if you can take out a myriad of all of this other information that has everything to do with the plot line that goes on in future books, why are you constantly adding stuff? I mean, the thing with those scenes is, like, they can say that it happened. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have to show it happening.
Right.
Bingo.
Right?
Exactly.
That's the one thing that I hate about stories that are like that. They're driven, like women who are driven because of some trauma that they've had to go through, like when they were younger or something like that. Like, I think women can be strong without having a trauma happen to them. How about they were just raised that way, or they have, people that have influenced them to be that way. So yeah, it really boggles my mind that, like, this is, what the writers are doing. And mind you, when you go through a process like that, you have to get permission from the writer, especially if they have creative control. So Diana saw all of this and approved the scripts, and was like, yeah, sure, it's good. And then and they filmed it. And I'm just like, I'm very confused on why you would think that those were okay or close to the books, or I mean, especially some of the made up stuff. So yeah, it still boggles, especially just some of the stuff that happened like the first and the second season, but here we are.
The thing that really confused me as far as the Bree and Bonnet rape scene. So one of the things that we talked about for last season was the fact that we didn't have to see, like, it wasn't overly graphic on screen. Like, we knew what was going on to her. We knew what was going on with her without having to actually see the physical act.
Yeah.
So for them to turn around and put it in a flashback or in her, her PTSD flashback, for us to actually see him on top of her raping her, I was confused. Like, why do we need to see that? We already know she was raped. We know it was brutal. We saw the look on her face as it was happening. We saw her being pulled and the door being closed. We heard her screams. We didn't need to see the physical. So I really understand that. It was just kind of like, and I rewatched it again last night. I'm like, why?
Why?
I have a
We didn't
very
need to see
good
that.
friend that is a writer. He's actually writing. He's writing a show, and he's actually writing a show for BET TV. He's a black man. He's writing a show for BET TV, and I get the craziest text messages from him. And he sent me a text message, and he goes, all right, I have to read you guys, and I'm reading you guys this. I have a segue for this, and I'm going to answer your question in just a minute. He goes, give me a reason you would sleep with your brother's husband and not feel like a slut. Now, I think they did that with Brianna for two reasons. I think they did that so that you would understand her fear. Because last year we didn't see it. We saw enough last year in last year's show to understand the way she behaved last year. Okay. But this year, when Bonnet grabbed her, we had to see what would make her understand her behavior this year. So we had to see more. So they gave us, as writers, they felt like we had to see more of what happened to her. And that's why we had that PTSD. It's all about intent, explanation, and motivation.
In one breath, you seen them all. I didn't need to see. I mean,
I know that, but like his text to me, it's all about motivation. When they're writing stuff, they have to write it. And it's very interesting to me because, like you were talking about an adaptation, you can't write somebody's inner dialogue. You can't write, like in the book, when Brianna's standing there thinking to herself, her inner dialogue. You have to see it. You have to write it on screen. And so you do a flashback, or you do where she's talking to her mother, or you do something to that effect. And that's why I think they wrote that PTSD scene, is they did it so that we would understand her behavior this year.
I don't
Just
know.
my opinion.
I don't know, because as someone who has gone through trauma, reliving all of the most of the time when you go through a trauma, you don't always remember the exact details. You remember that it happened to you, because the whole point is that you put yourself in another place so you don't have to feel it, right? You don't have to experience everything that's happening. You know, that's a lot of the times why people who've dealt with trauma will have this as a counselor. I'm only speaking as a counselor and you know, someone who's actually experienced this, but dissociative disorder, right? Where you dissociate from the trauma because it's something that continues to happen. So I don't feel like she would go back in you know, her brain and remember the exact explicit details of every single thing that happens. And I know that, like, you know, for people who know the idea of trauma, if they haven't experienced it, you know, they know that if something like that has happened to them, it's not something that they're going to want to watch.
Well, you know, they got it right when they did Claire's rape, which I thought they did a really good job with that. Maybe they just thought in Brianna's rape that enough time had passed that she would. I mean, we're never going to know what's in their mind because we're not the writer's room. So unfortunately.
Yeah.
So let's move on.
Unless we ask the writers.
I know, I wish we could. Believe me, there are times that I wish we could. So now we've talked about what was in season 5 that we wish wasn't in season 5. What's something that you wish was in season 5 that wasn't? And somebody mentioned mine before, and that was the gold. I'm like, why did they leave the gold out? Where's the gold?
Well, if you have the gold,
is that vein that runs from book 4 all the way to book 8, and it's gone.
And book 9. Whether they get it on screen or not, it's in.
It's there. Yeah, exactly.
And where the gold goes, where the gold storyline goes, at least in the book, they could have maybe portrayed it differently if they had portrayed it at all in the show. But at least according to the book, right, which is all we have to go by, where the gold storyline goes, the bugs follow. And so because we did it, and that was actually to me the first clue. And again, I could be wrong, and they could give us something and bring it back, and it would be maybe weird, but who knows? The moment I had to check the credits after the season 5 premiere, when I first saw it, I'm like, wait, did we get the bugs? They were never introduced, but they're in the credits. And I was like, wait, so they're there. Okay, great. So maybe I was expecting, okay, well, maybe they didn't want to take away from the wedding, whatever. So, but as the season progressed, and we're like, I mean, they may have been addressed, but they were never like very little. And I, you know, even without giving them full scenes, and even without giving them as large a roles as they had in the books, so I got less and less confident. So 0 mention of gold, and 0 making the bugs, bringing them to life for us, because we're supposed to love the bugs and then suffer as at least in the books, as readers, and then hopefully as watchers, when, of course, what happens to Mrs. Bug happens to Mrs. Bug, right? In book 7, end of book 6. So yeah, I don't really have an answer for that. We'll have to see how it progresses, but that was my first clue that we might not get it. And I kind of, as it went along, I wasn't scared. Like I'm like, again, keeping them separate. I gotta like let it go. This is not my life. But it's hard to let that kind of stuff go, because like you said, the stuff that they decided to to add at the expense of some of these other things, right? And especially if you want to look long term, we may not get 8 books or 10, even though, you know, book 9's coming out and there's one more book, so she says. And that's okay. You know, I, as a podcaster who has been doing a weekly show for 7 or 8 years, you know, that's okay if they don't do all. It's okay. But at the same time, it's like, you know, they keep greenlighting. And I'm like, you know, I sometimes think that while I do believe they 100% create a good product as far as it being intriguing and entertaining and that kind of thing. I sometimes you just gotta wonder, like, what's up? What were they thinking?
What's the thought
right?
process?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, so, you know, seeing the bugs in the credits, I honestly think that they did film scenes.
Yeah, they did.
Because they won't credit them unless they actually film scenes. So, I mean, I think it could be a thing where they introduce them in the new season, and start talking about the gold and everything and how it was stolen and all of that other stuff. Because they might, and this goes into editing, right? The editor put everything in. So I feel like, and I think, like, the cool thing is that I've noticed, especially on the Twitter and all that like, if the fans say, hey, what about this? You will see it. right? So people have been making comments like that, and they've been reacting, and then noticing, okay, well, maybe, hey guys, maybe we messed up. Maybe we should do this, and if we can't get it in this season, then we'll bring it in the next season. So the fact that they were credited, I feel like it will be in the next season. I mean, that's kind of the reason why it was greenlit, right? Because there's just so much, there's so much backing from the fan base involved in the shows. And so like, and they know that it's like, it is important to the storyline. So I really feel like we're going to see the bugs probably in this new season. I can't wait for it to come out too. I've been trying to wait patiently, but I'm just like, can you just, because you know when you just get like the station just for the time, I'm waiting until I can like start my subscription again.
I kind of feel the same way as far as when they're going to introduce the bugs. I mean, we've seen them in season 5. We see them here. We see them there. They're helping Claire with taking out the twins' tonsils, and so we see them, but not the bigger story. And I feel like maybe because they brought part of the bigger story from 6 over into season 5, that maybe we'll get that part in season 6, especially since we know that they cast and filmed scenes with the Christies, because that was the thing for me in 5 when Claire made Marcelly her assistant. I was like, this is weird. and now that I think about it, that was kind of weird too, because Malva plays a large part in Claire's story as well, with what happens in, I believe it's book 6 and maybe book 7. I'm a little murky on the details, but we know that that's going to be an important part. So I would think that if they're putting those characters in the next season, maybe we'll get more of the bugs in season 2, and that's going to be interesting. But I feel like it's going to be part of that. For 5 seasons now, most of the story has been focused on Claire and Jamie, and then on Roger and Bree, and we don't really get to see a lot of what's going on with the other characters. And I think maybe next season we may get to branch out a little bit. I mean, we now have Lizzie and both of the twins there in the show, so I really hope they don't leave that out, because that's like one of the most hilarious parts of the books to me. So I just feel like maybe in the next season we'll start branching out and seeing a little bit more about what happens with the extended part of Fraser's Ridge. At least I hope that's what we get. So because that was the other thing that that I will say bothered me slightly in the first episode, even though I realized there was some time that kind of went by, and maybe some apologies were made, but the fact that at the wedding Lizzie comes over and she asks Bree, she's like, can I dance with Roger? And she takes Roger. I was like, hold up, you're the whole reason Ian is with. It was one of those things where I had to stop myself, like, okay, you know what? Some time has passed. Maybe, we didn't see them make amends with each other. That's one thing I do wish was in this season, because you can't go from almost beating someone to death and then selling them to the Mohawk and all of that, and then come back and it's the wedding day and you seem like you're kind of cordial, and Roger's always trying to please Jamie, or he's upset because he feels like he's disappointing Jamie. And I was like, because you have to remember, yes, Jamie didn't realize who Roger was, but still, you beat this man within an inch of his life and then sold him to the Indians. So that I think we needed to see a little bit more of that exposition in this season. And that's what I wish we had been able to see. Just kind of a mending and a building of that relationship. Not only with Roger and everyone else, but with Bree and her parents. I mean, Bree was pretty pissed at Jamie when she realized what had happened. And we don't get to see any of that, mending of that relationship. So I wish we could have seen that.
I think that was part of a continuation of how season 4 ended. And if they had handled the ending of that differently, then, you probably would have seen what you wanted at the beginning of 5.
Mm-hmm. I think they just tried to kind of, I think they knew that the audience as a whole did not like the end of season 4. How many times did we hear that the first episode of season 5 was a love letter to the fans? And I think we actually at one point discussed that it was more an apology letter to the fans than a love letter to the fans. So I think they just wanted to wipe that slate clean, say, oh, we're sorry. And look, we have a new wig master too. Because the wigs were tons better in season 5 than they had been in season 4 because they were awful. So, speaking of season 6, we know we have 6 episodes, right? 6 episodes. I went on a little because, we have that wonderful mother-daughter team over in Scotland that goes to all the on-location filming sites. Apparently there has been very little on-location filming other than the sets they've already gotten built that stand in for Charleston and the Ridge. Other than maybe a handful of extras, the Christies are the only big casting that we have for season 6. We have a handful of pictures for season 6. And as we know, for the end of season 5, Marsley goes into labor. So what do we think's going to happen in season 6, everybody?
That's a lot. I mean,
Wow.
For me,
We've
I
seen
think
pictures of Jamie and Fergus. We've seen pictures of Roger rising like how's it described? Rising like a Poseidon out of the waters holding a baby.
That tells me that he's getting his minister on.
yeah, I was about to say that.
So-
Like,
They're gonna finally say, "Oh, he has a calling now."
Yeah.
Yeah, he's got to call in now. If you look at the Christie storyline, because in that book, the storyline, the Christie storyline goes over several sections from start to finish. If you go from the very start of when the Christies arrived to the Ridge to the very end of that Christie storyline, and y'all all have read it, you know what I'm talking about. It's a fairly long story arc. You know what I'm talking about? And I'm just wondering, with 6 episodes, if that won't encompass the whole Christie story arc with other little things kind of fitted into it.
That's what I think. I think
think-
Actually, 8
I think it's-
episodes for season 6. 8 episodes.
Oh, it is 8.
No, it's 6.
Okay.
I think it's 6.
It's 8. I'm looking at it now. It's 8 episodes, including a 90-minute premiere.
okay.
I thought it was just 6.
Well, 6 or 8. My guess is going to be, without spoiling. I'm sure. Well, the readers know, but without, I guess, spoiling potential future watchers.
Yeah.
The culmination, not the results of, but the culmination of the culmination / end of at least the Malva Christie storyline. That would be a great final, I guess, cliffhanger. That would be a great episode.
Yeah.
Especially if someone, because in the book it doesn't happen, but if someone comes upon her. So, or actually, I think it did happen in the book, but it's off page. We don't learn about it. We only hear or see what Claire's doing and going through. But that I could see that easily being kind of the arc of Claire's arc, at least for the season. Well, Claire's, Jamie's, the whole family's, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
I
7
think-
is supposed to be getting like 16 episodes. So
Yes.
The
I
next,
think
yeah,
the next
they're
season's
gonna
like
make up for it.
humongous. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the same thing. I think it's going to focus on the Christie storyline, but I also think we're going to see a tormented Marcelly and Fergus because
Yeah.
of this birth that's coming up. And I think they set that up really well in season 5 by switching it up and having Marcelly be the person who kills Lionel. And her first question to Jamie is, am I going to be haunted? Am I going to go to hell for this?
I
And
thought
so,
about that.
yes, and I think that was a setup for the birth that's coming and all the consequences of that birth and what we'll see in that. And I'm actually looking forward to that storyline because I think those two actors are so up to it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's going to be very well done.
I agree. And also, even though it is a heavy storyline, I just want to see more of Lauren Lyle and Caesar Domboy on my screen. I feel like for the characters that
they're wonderful.
Fergus's character, who has been with them since the beginning of Claire and Jamie's story, I feel like he's so underused in the story. Like we really do see more of Marcelly bonding with Claire than we do see of Fergus bonding with them. And this is like their child, basically. You know, even in the first episode of season 5, when Jamie is calling people to the cross, he says, you know, come, Fergus, son of my name and son of my heart. Like you have this closeness with these characters, but we don't really get to see that explored as much. And that's one thing that's always bothered me, just about that character in general. Like, this is supposed to be your son. We should see him at least as much as we do Bree. We should know more of his story and of Marcelly's story, especially because of that family connection. And we don't get it enough. And I hope we get to see it more in the next couple of seasons, even if it is dealing with heavier, a heavier storyline. But I do want to see them because I think those two actors are amazing, and I love the chemistry that they have, that they bring to these characters. And I just think we as the fans deserve to see it more.
Yeah.
I also hope a little bit,
go ahead.
But I think it may not happen this season because there's only 8. I want to see more of what happens to Ian among the Mohawk. Yeah. But of course, I have a sneaky feeling because we saw mostly the Christies this season, we're probably not going to get it. I also believe, of course, because of COVID, I feel like they'd have to bring in more of those actors again. So I have a feeling that's probably why a lot of it got scrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd have to bring back the folks playing the Mohawk, and that's going to be a whole host of COVID travel issues.
COVID also a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I think I hope we get more of Roger's faith journey because it's making the season feel really unfinished. Especially the end of season 5, like it's sort of him be wandering and not really knowing what to do. It's kind of a little bit out of character. Yeah. Especially for the non-book readers who don't really know what his deal is. It's sort of, it needs to be answered at some point. But yeah, those are my. I also think we might get a peek of Lizzie and the twins, but I'm also kind of scared for that plot because that's gonna be. I can already see people being like, oh hell no, I'm out of here. This is just too damn much. Like I've already.
I wouldn't mind if they held off on that until season 7. Honestly, give it the attention it's due.
Yeah.
If they held off on that a little bit, that's okay.
Yeah.
Do we think we're gonna see a pregnant Bree? Because
I don't think in season 6. I think maybe in season 7.
I think because it's because again, not only did the whole one book, one season thing get toppled in season 5, now that season 6 is book 6, part of book 6, but because of COVID or whatever reasons they had, it was truncated, and some of the stuff, whatever they left out or couldn't get to from book 6 that they meant to include will be in the beginning, or so I'm led to believe, at the beginning of season 7. So yes, I believe that if we don't get it in what we get as seasons in the season 6 that we get, I think it will be there. And the reason I think, I mean, it'll be at some point, right? Because if they've already greenlit season 7's not gonna, I mean, technically you could split up book 6 and make 2 seasons out of that, but they've already brought stuff forward, so it's not quite a whole book anymore. But yeah, I think because they greenlit season 7, which means heart of Echo, you're already split time, right? Split time, 2 time stories. So the whole reason they went back was the baby. So yeah, absolutely, we have to get the baby. It's just a question of when it's going to happen, and that's a really good point.
Speaking of splitting stories, we've got that new book coming out. So what do we think? Has everybody read the daily lines she puts out?
I
I
haven't
avoid them.
because I haven't gotten that far in the books yet. So I've been saying, okay, I don't mind you guys discussing it because I'm like, I'm just ready for it to come. But yeah, COVID messed with the way that I read, and it got to a point where I couldn't focus on a book. So I'm still, I think, like halfway between book 7. So I haven't been reading them, but I'm really excited.
I haven't read the lines either, mostly because I do not remember what happened after the end of book 8. Because I didn't mention at the beginning, I first started reading Outlander in 2010. That Diana Gabaldon came to New York Comic Con. She premiered the graphic novel version of Outlander. So like that was sort of where I started, got to book 8. And of course, that was like 6 years ago. So I don't really remember what happened. So the daily lines, I'm like, okay, I cannot read this because it's going to make no sense to me. I'm going to be harassing my friends on Slack. Explain everything to me here. I don't know. I don't remember because I haven't had time to reread too because like I have other stuff to review. So yeah, I'm in that boat of like, I don't want to read them because then it's going to mess with what I remember, and then like reviewing seasons, this is not gonna help me review anything at all. Like I need to keep those things separate.
Yeah, I find it really interesting what she researches in the process of her writing, because she was Cynthia. When did she come to Savannah? It was what, 3 years ago?
It was 3 years ago because
Yes.
I couldn't be there because my son got married that day.
No, but when was it that you went and met her though? That you went and had your book autographed?
That was before that. I think that was it's been 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yeah, it's been 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Because I remember she went, because she took a tour because the Savannah College of Art and Design has got like some they've got some revolutionary portraits. And she took like a tour of those. And then she took like a marshland tour, because I remember she tweeted about it and thanked some people for it, because it was like a real one of those, like what I call invasive, where you actually go up into the marshlands and it's just, not what I would call fun. And I find that kind of stuff fascinating, that she takes that kind of stuff, especially in some of the daily lines. You find out that Brianna has been commissioned to paint the portraits of some of the British generals. And then to know that she actually went and looked at some of those revolutionary portraits at the Savannah College of Art and Design, that's kind of fascinating to me. And I just thought that's kind of interesting. That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I want to know, and this is it's mentioned in book 8, it's mentioned explicitly in that Diana wrote words describing it, but it's not mentioned explicitly as in, look what I'm showing you. You have to read between the lines to wonder what I'm describing.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was my Alexa. And that is when Bree comes back with the kiddos, she falls and the book, or the bag she has kind of lands on her and it hurts her. And so there's this illusion that there's something heavy in that bag. And it's mentioned several times. And so I want to know what because if you're going back and you thought, this might be it, because people be cray and they're trying to kill me, right? What do you bring with you when you have such limited space? And I read somewhere, maybe I put it in our Facebook group, and someone said, I hope she brought a Merc manual with her. And I said, oh, that's good. But, it just makes me think like, I want to know what that was. I didn't think book. I thought like it was, I got the hint, the way Diana described it. It was either wooden or metal. That's how I understood it. But anyway, I want to know what she brought back with her.
I think she brought all kinds of junk in that. I mean, I envision this backpack to be probably as big as she is, and it's like, and just full of just like, probably, and she was with, in book 8, she was with Joe. So she might have brought back just medicine that there's no telling what she brought back.
Absolutely.
I know at the Savannah event that I was at, somebody asked her what was in Bree's bag.
Oh,
Because I had the same impression as you, that it was metal and, heavy and all of that. And in her typical Diana way, she answered but didn't answer. And she said, well, there were books, plural.
oh, okay.
And that one of them we know from the Daily Lines was for her daughter Mandy, and it was, I think, green eggs and ham.
Oh,
Yeah. But she said books. But I had thought, well, I know Bree was fixated on getting plumbing into the house and central heat into the house. So maybe some books on that, maybe some tools also to be crafting some clay piping.
In the same thread that we posted, someone mentioned the Merck Manual, which again made me laugh. And then someone also mentioned, and they said they had, I don't know how you find proof because the book's not out yet, but maybe it was an illusion that Diana gave and they understood it this way. Someone also answered the volume, because I don't know how many he wrote, but a few of Frank's volumes.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Well, I think Frank, I have always thought that Frank found Brianna in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I have, in fact, I think that, and we have had ad nauseum discussions about this in the sisterhood, that was what spurred Frank to wanting to leave with Brianna at the moment that he wanted to leave with her, is that was when he found her in the past. And he knew she left and went back, but he had no idea when she left with Claire to go back. He just found her in the past and knew that she left him. And I've always felt like he found her in the past, and he found her through the art that she did.
And I know this is not our main reason for being here, our main discussion. And I know a lot of people, I'm not saying, I don't know your opinion, the panelists' opinions, but in the world of the fandom, there's so much. Frank is such a divisive figure, right? You either hate him or you love him, or few people are like, eh. Most people, at least book readers, are like, or they defend him till the death. One of the things that I think about Frank, though, is that he, regardless of whether you like him or don't like him, to me, he is the most interesting character in the book.
Yeah.
Because of what Diana has alluded to, that he was a spy, once a spook, always a spook, all of that stuff. And then in 2014, when she was here in our town for the Moby tour, she mentioned, so someone asked what she was working on, or someone asked something, and the answer was, I'm writing a book called What Frank Knew. And to the best of my knowledge, that was the first time she said it publicly. Anyway, when I heard that, I almost like became liquid and fall out of my seat, like you see in the cartoons. I was like, the heck, the what, the fuck? Because it is, I was like, what? And then I talking to another friend, met obviously through the show, or through the books, through the show, named Mandy. And when we had read all the books before we ever met each other, except for book 8, because it was just coming out. It hadn't come out yet. And she said something to me that like sparked this interest in me. And I was like, what? And it kind of freaked me out, but in a good way. And then now I kind of go back, kind of what you're saying. And I read anything that either has Frank in it or mentions Frank or alludes to him with brand new eyeballs. And it's only been made more interesting. And I'm more suspicious now of so much after book 7 and 8, right? Mostly, well, both 7 and 8 happened together. To me, 8 happens, that storyline happens because of book 7 and what they find and what the dangers are. But Mandy said, you know what? I think we're talking about Voyager. She's like, yeah, I don't think Frank's death was an accident. I was like, what?
That's my theory too.
Yeah.
Whoa, my God. Talk about mind blowing. When I heard that, I was like, first of all, it was a car accident. What are you talking about? She's like, well, it was a car accident. Yes, he died in a car. But we get nothing from Diana and nothing from Claire and nothing from, anyone else around. It's just that he was brought in. So yeah, there's so much unexplained, and maybe we don't need a lot explained about his death, but the timing of so much. He died the day after or the night of, threatening to take Brianna away from her.
Yeah.
That's too much of a coincidence, even without the whole accident part. That's weird. Right. And so once Mandy said that, I was like, that's, first of all, that's amazing. You're blowing my mind. And second of all, you're hurting my brain, because now I have to go back and think about, so I am suspicious of everything now.
Well, you know, in that letter that he wrote her in
Yes,
that
the
book,
letter. Yes.
he says to her, I'm sending you back to the
Yes.
man that can protect you.
Exactly. Yeah. And the thing that gets me, because again, it's all tied up with, this is what I love about 7 and 8 is the part, I mean, I love the whole thing, but to me, it's like a mystery, the mystery suspense part of the 80s. When she's reading the book, the letter, he says, dearest Deadeye, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I've written this to, you've just left to go do X, Y, Z, and I'm sitting down to write this. And something in there, it gives you context clues that she was about, I think she was 15. And so he writes this letter. Now, we know when he writes it. We don't know when he gives it to whomever, probably the Reverend, or maybe he did, because he probably traveled for work. I don't know. But what we don't know is when the letter was placed in the desk, and who by. I mean, that probably doesn't matter so much, but it's fascinating to think that he wrote it and he gave it, my guess is the Reverend, sent it to him, and the Reverend placed it. But that puts the whole thing and he knew what was going to happen. He knew the dangers, to your point that he didn't prepare her, or he failed her. So him doing the letters and him trying to take her away, right, was him trying to rectify that. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know when this is happening, but I'm going to do my best. And the letter, if he was truly going to take her away and he had been able to do that, then my guess, now that you say that, my guess is the letter, I think he was trying to cover all of his bases, because because that letter was written before he tried to take her away. So so he knew something before he ever threatened Claire, like 2 or 3 years before. So there's so much in it. It's so long, and you're like, oh my gosh, there's too many questions and too many interesting things.
I think he might have known it even earlier than that, because he taught Bree to hunt. He taught her to ride.
That exactly.
And she was fairly young when he did that. So I think he found her pretty early on, and then went from there seeking more information and found her.
Yeah, I always thought he found her.
Yeah.
But if they don't have the gold, they're not going to have the mystery, because everybody's hunting that gold.
Well, yeah, the gold is why. Well, she would have been, the people, the Brachenseer, they are after her anyway. But the main catalyst for that, at least what we heard most so far, is that gold. And so without the gold, you don't have the reason to. Well, without Mandy, you don't have a reason to go back or forward. Without the gold, you don't have a reason or the danger to go back again. So that's what I'm saying. They keep greenlighting seasons, but they're leaving these things out, and you're like, but how's it gonna work? I don't know. We'll see. I'm glad I'm not a writer. Although I have to say, I know several, I think Meryl at least, several writers who have been there since, or maybe just Meryl. At least Meryl has read all the books. And I know the writers read the books before they write the scripts. They need to prepare in general. But I don't know that someone brought on, say, for season 6 needs to go back and read 1 through 5. I don't know. Who knows?
See, I think they should. I think.
Oh, they should. But I'm saying I don't know that they do. And I don't know that they necessarily read ahead. So what I'm saying is, someone has made this statement several times, and I've heard it, and I still kind of laugh at it, because I don't know if people, maybe they mean it kind of tongue in cheek, but I truly, even if they never told us who it was ever, because, signing NDAs and all that, because that would happen if this happened. I'm telling you, they should have had, since day one, probably not even one, probably like 2 or 3, but they should have had some fans, not be writers, but be kind of fan consultants. And I don't mean that because I wanted to be it, or because I'm a fan. Yeah, I mean, would it be great? Of course. My point is, you have the author. So you could argue you don't need a fan, you have the author. And the author does know the fandom very well. So she absolutely stands up for things, and sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. But if you had, and again, not through every single meeting and not through the development of every single script, but even if it's just during the breakdown phase, right? I think, I don't know, because I don't know, and maybe in the end it wouldn't make any difference, because they have Diana there and they don't listen sometimes. So who knows? But I think if they had actual feedback, like the not screening, but the like those
like a context editor.
Well,
Yeah,
or maybe it
content
maybe it
editor.
is screening. Yeah, when you bring in a group of fans and you sit down on a panel and you put them in a room in the dark with snacks or not, and you make them watch something, right? At that point, it's almost too late because you've already filmed it. But if you could do the equivalent of some again, like I said, not even at the point of the scripts, like earlier on, I think they could have. They're going to do what they're going to do, but I think they might have had a little more success in not making some of the mistakes that they had. You shouldn't have to write the entire series, quite frankly, should be a love letter to the fans, not one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's one episode, exactly, it's I won't say CYA, but if it's one episode that you're pointing out is a love letter over 5 seasons, I mean, that's weird.
Well, they do have reshoots, right?
That's true.
You put out days for reshoots as a just in case, and they do film extra scenes. I don't know if they do like private screenings at all, especially, and I think that would be like the most smartest idea ever. But as we all know, productions are not very smart when it comes to cinema. So,
No.
I feel like it would make sense to have like a tester episode.
Yes.
And put that out and say, hey, can we get just like a focus group to, just
Thank
watch
you,
this
focus group.
and tell us, people who are actual fans, and tell us what you think. And then obviously know that like some of the extra scenes that they did shoot, because that they've shot other scenes, they just didn't put them in there. The editor gets paid a crap ton of money to do re-edits, right? So they'll obviously have the chance and they'll have the time. I mean, that's the reason why they film the episodes months in advance. Like they already finished filming season 6. So, they have time before the premiere to re-edit episodes if they need to. And I think it absolutely makes sense to have, fans be like in a little focus group and say, hey, this makes sense. This doesn't. Why did you guys put this in here? Or something. But they have the liberties of doing it. They just don't want to spend the money, which is
I'd argue
absolutely daft.
I'd argue they need to have some people who didn't read the books in that focus group too, because I feel
Absolutely.
like sometimes they do too much leaning on, oh, you read this, we don't need to explain it. And when people get the screeners, because when I took over recapping Dan and Geek, the previous person did not read the books. So there was a lot of stuff she's like, I don't know what the hell happened here. I don't know how to fill that in. And then now the fans are mad at me because I made a guess that was wrong. And I'm like, sorry. It's like, yeah, because it is hard.
That always said, wasn't it Tony Graffia that said, we know we have book fans, but we have to write for the TV fans. And I'm thinking to myself, no, you write for the book fans. The TV fans won't know any different. Was it Tony Graffia that said that, Cynthia? We talked about that, I think.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
Yeah. And I thought, no, that's completely wrong. You write for the book fans. TV people won't know any different.
Yeah.
Well, especially if you do it well, then the book fans appreciate it, whether they agree with it or not, I don't know.
TV people won't know.
They won't know because as long as it's done, things are explained enough. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we're getting close sometime. So final grade season 5. Ginger, we'll start with you. Final grade season 5.
Final grade? Oh gosh. To do this, I really have to, I'm not going to grade the others, but I have to think about it in connection with the others because it wasn't the same as others. Honestly, like, are we doing ABC or 1, 2, 3?
ABC.
Oh goodness. The lowest B possible.
Okay. Who's next?
I think I would give it a B.
Sorry.
I think I would give it a B. I mean, for what we got, and we know these books are very long, like we already discussed. There were some things taken out of what we thought we would see this season. stuff brought, back or forward from what we should have gotten next season. So I think all in all, they did a good job. There were some things that I think they could have improved on, but also I think they had a lot of material to work with, and I wouldn't want that job to have to sit here and decide, okay, so what do we keep and what do we throw away? Like, I wouldn't want to have that job, but I think they pulled a lot of the heart from the books, and so I'll give it a B.
Yeah, I think I'd give it a high C, just because I feel like there were just some things that they did too early, and they could have focused on other things, honestly. I don't know. I feel there was just so much stuff that's like pertinent to the storyline, that, and not only the gold, but there were just other things that I felt were pertinent to storylines, and they didn't really, give a chance to give light to. So, yeah.
I'm going to give it a B minus, because I can't fault them for certain actors not being there to film, because again, the gold, Phaedra's not there. We don't have a lot of the stuff in Scotland because Nell's not here, and neither is Laura. So like that, all that had to be cut anyway. Natalie's not here either for Phaedra. So yeah, that was a whole, I can't fault them for that, because they can't predict that. Actors sign, especially these supporting cast actors, they sign year-to-year contracts. So yeah, when people are like, why can't people wait around? They have to pay rent. So like they can't control that. So what I can say is I think there's some things that could have been improved, but I also think it's not, season 4 to me is always going to be the weakest season. So 5 definitely had some great moments to counter how weak season 4 was. Also too, the directing in season 5 was much better. So yeah, I think that the directors really got like the heart of those like really tough stories, especially episodes 7 and 8. Those are really amazing directing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna give it, okay, I'm torn on this. I'm gonna give it an A in terms of concept, because they swung for the fences this season. They tried some new things. The finale episode, I thought just the concept behind it was excellent, and they experimented. The silent movie treatment maybe wasn't my favorite, but I'm going to give them an A+ for trying. But the overall season, I felt like was would get the most improved award. I would put it behind season 1 for me, and so I would probably say about a B+ overall, because as a binge watch, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to give it mid B too, I guess. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, there were a couple of elements I didn't like. There were a couple of shows that I thought were kind of slow. I didn't especially like the episode where, they had young Ian trying to kill himself over his young wife. I thought that was kind of out of character for him. He didn't do that in the books. I understood him and Roger having to work through their pain and all that, but I just thought it was out of character for him. But they brought back one of my favorites, Graham McTavish, and they shocked me on that. That was like holy cow. That was a complete surprise, lovely surprise. Loved it. Yeah, mid B. So we've got about 4 minutes left. Very quickly, the one thing that you're hoping to see in season 6. Go.
More Fergus. More Fergus.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, more Fergus.
Yeah, more Fergus.
The scene with the Death Eater, where the woman dies and then doesn't die and then dies.
Yes.
And the comedy of it, it also sets this up. If they keep it, not that scene, but if they keep all the things that Malva does, and Claire getting, kind of sick and all that, if they keep it, then it ties in to Malva doing that to Claire. So it helps the storyline if they keep the storyline that way, but it also is heck funny with Jemmy like, Mom, Granny, and they're like, hush, Jem. They're like, but. So I would love to.
Roger's first
I would love
sermon
that.
with the snake in the church. I hate
Oh my
snakes,
God,
but
we just
was
read that.
hysterical. I love that scene. I love that scene.
Claire just like, boop, nope, in the pocket. Yes,
in the
perfect.
pocket. Oh, Claire.
Yes.
Oh, in the pocket. Well, ladies, I
Oh.
think we're about done. That's it for this year's 2021 Outlander Virtual Panel. We hope you have enjoyed it, everyone, and we hope you will enjoy season 6 of Outlander and the new book when it comes out. And come join us at Dragon Con this year. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, panelists, and we are out.